Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Retro Pioneers Podcast. I'm your host, Blackboijaye, and I'm here with my co-host, Byron P. Jackson. Tonight, we're diving into an epic topic, gaming then versus now.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? I'm excited. This is going to be a good one tonight, man.
Okay, I believe it, man. I believe it. We're going to be exploring how gaming has evolved from the pixelated glory of retro classics to the cinematic blockbusters of today. And of course, we'll sparkle in some nostalgia and our thoughts on where gaming is heading. So grab your favorite snacks, settle in, and let's get into it. You know, Byron, when I think about gaming back in the day, it was all about simplicity. Thinking of Super Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, even the arcade hits like Pac-Man. What I loved most was how those games didn't need hyper realistic graphics. They relied on tight gameplay and just pure fun. Every level felt like a puzzle you had to solve with skill, patience, and maybe a little luck. And I don't even get me started on the couch co-op, passing the controller with your friends or battling it out in Street Fighters. It was an experience that made gaming so personal. What about you? What is one of the memories that stands out for you?
Dude, yeah, all of those games were, they're the instant classics. You mentioned Pac-Man. Go with that list you mentioned again?
So I listed Super Mario Bros, Sonic the Hedgehog, and
Yes, and Pac-Man.
And also Street Fighters.
And Street Fighter. Those are some of the quintessential just classics from, honestly, the beginning of what modern gaming is, because those are the games that took off right after Atari, right after, things like Pong and Snake, those simple things. Pac-Man was kind of the segue into Mario. But gosh, once Mario hit the scene and you had that little character and he could jump and you could power him up, holy cow, he could change. All these little epiphanies, things to nowadays that we take for granted, leveling up. If a game's not leveling up, then my character doesn't get stronger. And then Sonic took it another level. Now he's now not just a slow plumber, he's a fast, like cool, anthropomorphic hedgehog dude who can run around. And that was the thing about those games. The graphics, especially starting with something like Pac-Man, it was all about gameplay. It was all about speed and technique, getting around in there. And I love that about Pac-Man. That was just some good times. We didn't know what we were missing. We didn't know what the future of gaming was. So just being able to play and have that digital experience, was the best. And then you go to Mario and oh my gosh, now you're this cool person in this world and you're running around, you're going down into the pipes and everything's 8-bit. 8-bit was amazing. And then you go from Sonic, then they just sped it up because Sonic and Mario they're the same type of game. They're platformers, they're old school, collecting coins, getting to new levels, beating the level as fast as you can kind of thing, clearing all the bosses. That was just the start of it. That was the beautiful pinnacle, that 8-bit era that then led into, 6-bit era.
It was definitely a crazy time that we was living in back then, man. We kind of didn't appreciate the classics as much as we should have. Don't get me wrong. We took very good advantage of playing these games because we just imagine back then you didn't have memory cards, so you didn't have no way to save your game. So sometimes you even had to leave your game on if you got so sleepy to the point where you couldn't play all through it. So
what was that? I think what was one of the first games that started offering saving? I feel like it was Donkey Kong Country.
Yes, on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, that was one of the first times, like that Super Nintendo was really the system where we could start saving things.
Yeah,
coming back, which was crazy.
And then
so that was another.
The last time I checked, Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, you weren't able to save.
Yeah.
But it came out to be Sonic 3 where you was able to save your gameplay. Your save and stuff like that. So it didn't really kind of get implemented into the gaming scene until around 94.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So when that was first when it was first
Especially for
introduced to
consoles,
me,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that was a different experience, you know, way different experience, man, because it's no longer you having to, you know, wait. You
Mhm.
know, your mom wake you up early in the morning, tell you to get up, get your clothes on for school, and you like, I don't want to leave the game on all day. I want to finish
Yeah.
it. When saving was possible, man, it was just so much convenient to the point where you were just able to just look, I'm gonna save at this particular point. Well, back then you had this, I think how Sonic worked. Once you beat that particular level, it went to the next one. That's when it automatically saved. But just thinking about it then, it was saving to these cartridges instead of memory cards. So
Oh, yeah.
whew, it's a great time to be alive, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of things evolving, though, is you kind of you get to look back on things with those rose tinted glasses and have those fond memories and see where it's gotten you now. That's the beauty of looking back on retro games.
What was the some of your best fond memories of Street Fighters, or just anything that you can remember from that particular time, even
Well,
if it
my
was
most
you playing
fond
with your brother?
memories of Street Fighter, yeah, was definitely playing Street Fighter with my brother, but also more so with my cousins. My first cousin Marlon, I remember every time that when they would come up to our place here or there in Maryland, or we go down in Texas, we would be playing some Street Fighter. It was just we had these rivalries um, that just got intense. Street Fighter I mean, it was the quintessential fighting game. You're trying to get the Hadoukens, and you're trying to do the spinning heel kicks, and get your sonic booms off. So there's just have some epic battles. I remember also in that era too. That's kind of when the FIFA games really started taking off, and NBA Live. Before we had 2K, 2K Sports wasn't even a thing, but you had FIFA and NBA Live. And I remember I used to play FIFA with a buddy of mine. His name was Chip,
Mhm.
and we used to have some intense FIFA matches, man. Just that whole era, and that was the 16-bit. I'm guessing the FIFA. Well, FIFA was everything.
Yeah.
FIFA had 8-bit, and then it was 16-bit also. Just that old pixelated style, like the characters running.
Mm.
Man, there's some battles in those games.
Yeah. See, when it came down to Street Fighter with me, I was just I want to sound probably like 3 or 4 years old when around that time.
Yeah.
So I didn't really too much remember the first set of Street Fighter games. What got me hooked was Street Fighter Alpha 2 on the
Oh
Super
yeah.
Nintendo.
Yep.
That what got me hooked on fighting games in general. Then it transitioned into Killer Instinct, and then When I played Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo, I did not like it at all. You know, because
Which
it
one did you
didn't.
play?
All three of them, man.
Oh
The
man.
first one I know for a fact I didn't really like too much because in the Nintendo, and I talked about this on a previous episode
Yeah.
where Super Nintendo don't offer no violence or anything. So playing a Mortal Kombat game on a Super Nintendo or Nintendo product, period, is just awful.
Well, I was trying to think, was there, because on the Super Nintendo, I've had Mortal Kombat 3. That was one that I got really into. And I guess did it have a gore thing you could turn on and off? Because I can't remember.
Nope. It didn't have no gore in it at all. You didn't get the gore unless you had got the Sega Genesis version.
Oh, see, I don't even remember that. That's wild. I just remember
Nintendo was
I played
real.
the heck out of the game with Sub-Zero.
Hey man, don't get me wrong. Even though it was on Super Nintendo, it was still a good game due to the
Yeah.
fact that you could do these things to people. But it just
Mhm.
if you was really like, let me just say this: if you ever played it on Sega Genesis and then you transition to Super Nintendo, oh, you're gonna have an awful time because it's just things the way it was set up for the Sega, and now you're playing on Super Nintendo. It just seemed very different, man. So
Yeah.
I never was truly like, if I wanted to play games that I knew that had
Mhm.
like kind of gore and stuff in it, I would play it on the Sega instead of playing it on the Nintendo.
Okay. Okay. That's what's up. Yeah, see,
So,
back in the day, I just had a, it's like I don't think I ever had a Sega.
man, you missing out.
No, I know. It's just, for some reason, especially back in the day, it's kind of like you had a Nintendo, then we went to Super Nintendo. And then I remember when Nintendo 64 first came out, for all the young kids out there, I had to go to Blockbuster and I was able to
Mm,
rent an N64 because I
mm,
don't think I was going to get one at the time, but we rented one for like 5 days. You could rent stuff from Blockbuster. I was like, okay, that was cool. But then my buddy down the street had one. That's how we started playing GoldenEye. I talked about last episode when I was terrible at GoldenEye. So we used to just play N64 at his house. But you used to be able to rent the console from Blockbuster and play.
good times, man.
Wild. Just to even think about that, man, that's just
Well,
hilarious.
let me ask you something about this then. What was your fondest memory when it came down to rent anything from like Blockbusters? You got Hollywood Blockbuster, and well, it was another
Hollywood Video. Hollywood Video.
Hollywood Video. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Man, well, she used to go to Blockbuster so much. I used to just renting that N64 in itself was a fun experience because I got to play Mario. The whole reason we rented it because my mom wanted to see that she had heard about Mario. She wanted to see how he looked now. That was the first. We went from 8-bit to 16, now 64-bit. So now the characters are 3D. And Mario was running around. And Mario, he's all square looking. But back then, it looked like a cartoon that you were just moving this cartoon character around through his world because our eyes didn't know any better. That's the funny thing about it is your eyes don't know what they're not seeing until they've seen it.
Exactly. That's
And
why
so,
that's why it's so crazy to play a game from then and now.
yeah, it sucks sometimes because you're imagining a game that you used to love, and then you look at it like, oh man, this is hard to look at
Yeah, it is, man. But when you
for
when you
just
have
a
that
few
love,
titles.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you have that love for the retro games, man, it don't really affect you that much.
Yeah, especially for some of the classics. There's a few in there from like that PS1 era where like if you're playing like the first Virtua Fighter, it's like, ooh, they're just like blocks. But if you're going back and you're playing Super Metroid on Super NES, it looks amazing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you have to make sure you're in that right era of the retro.
Mm. All
That
right.
there's that beauty in the 16-bit right before we got to the first generation of 3D, everything was still real blocky
Mm.
and they were just figuring it out. But
Mm.
then by the time you get to PS2,
It kind of smoother now.
yeah.
It's like one game that I can remember that was kind of really blocky was let me see, Banjo Kazooie.
Yeah, exactly. Banjo is definitely a blocky one. Yeah, and you
Yeah,
think about because Donkey Kong Country was kind of a 3D game, and so that's what people thought they were going to get right away, but it wasn't. Because Donkey Kong Country was still a side scroller, but it had that 3D pop, really pop blocks.
it was taking advantage of the 16-bit, man.
Yeah, they pushed that console as far as it could go.
Did you actually beat any of them? The Donkey Kong Countries?
That was in the era when I like if I wouldn't I didn't beat every game. I would play, and then
Skim through it.
no, I just if I didn't beat it, I would just be back to playing Street Fighter. And also, when you're a kid, you're so active, like playing basketball, soccer,
Yeah.
running around outside, playing Manhunt at night.
Now,
So
I mean, back then we had the luxury of being able to go outside, and it's kind of different now that these kids don't have that luxury of doing it because they so glued into the iPads and technology,
yeah,
man.
that's true. Like, you used to go over to your friend, like you'd run around outside and then you'd get so tired, you'd go into your friend's house and you would play some Street Fighter for a little while. And then you'd get bored because one of you would be winning a lot. And then somebody like, oh, let's go back outside. You know what I mean?
Man,
And
that is so
so,
true.
yeah, that was the retro styles. Or you come in and you go in to play Mario Kart or GoldenEye. This is when we're a little bit older. And then all right, let's go back out and play some more knockout.
Mm.
Go out and play some more basketball.
So fast forward to now, and gaming has become a complete different beast. It's like stepping into a movie with games like The Last of Us Part 2, Elden Ring, and even open world titles like Cyberpunk 2077. The graphics, the storytelling, and the immersion are just on a whole nother level. But sometimes I wonder, has gaming lost some of its soul in the process? Don't get me wrong, I love the big budget experience, but I miss the simplicity of sitting down and knowing I could beat a game in 1 to 2 seconds. Byron, do you think modern games are too complicity, or just hitting their stride?
Gosh, I mean, no, it's a complicated topic, and that's kind of what a lot of people in gaming are talking about right now. Is when is a video game becoming full big budget that some of the games are launching a little unfinished or not totally polished. Because that wasn't a thing when you got Mario and you got Sonic and you got Street Fighter 2, they were complete. I don't remember Street Fighter 2 ever having glitches or things like, what I mean?
No.
And so, yeah, there is that fine line that needs to be walked of where, because we all like these big budget new games, they're super cinematic and they make you feel things at times, especially if you're immersed in those worlds. But there's got to be that fine line, and I think what needs to happen is the creative always needs to lead. And gaming has become so big budget now compared to when you and I first started that the money executives kind of take over. And so that kind of happens with any industry, but you have to make sure that the creatives still have power and still have agency. So like, for example, Mario and Sonic and all those games are creator-led. Creators had clout kind of in those Nintendo, and they were able to get those things out there. And you just have to make sure that those things are still happening now, especially with bigger budget titles, especially things like The Last of Us 1 and 2. You can see, the writer of that, I think it's Neil Druckmann, right? He was heavily involved on the creative side and the making and everything. It was all cohesive. So that's why that is one of those big blockbusters that really works, especially on the cinematic, the graphics, the narrative, and those types of games are the pinnacle where we didn't even know we wanted gaming to go when we were younger, when we were just riding around an Excite bike, hopping around as Mario, speeding around as Sonic. Now you get to these epic, HBO level zombie tales or these epic sci-fi trilogies like Mass Effect. What I love, gosh, it's the potential is really there. But like I said, it's got to be, the creatives have to lead. The executives and the money people have to really listen to the creatives, or else it just becomes cash grabs and nobody wants it.
I agree with you. It just seems like it's okay. So I was having this conversation with buddies of mine, and they was also steering to the point where gaming as of today, it seems rushed due to the fact everything, like you said, is a money grab, right? And by everything being a money grab, the love and the passion of it is not there anymore. It was in the previous state of the game, but when the game takes so much long to come out, they rush it. Like not the developers, but the publishers. They rush it.
Yeah, publishers forget that all of these games are investments, and they're not like you can't really do a game as fast as you can do television production or even a movie production. A $50 million movie will come out a lot quicker than a $50 million game.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's so much more tech involved and there's things that need to happen. There's just more meetings and things. When you have a scripted piece, once that script is in a pretty much kind of a locked position, I mean, there'll be changes while you're shooting. But if you're going in with a locked script and you have a good director, that's going to be a relatively smooth shoot, some light, like pickups and things after, some reshoots maybe later. But that'll be 2 years. A game, most games now, especially 50 million and beyond games, they need 3 full years minimum. They have because there's writing, there's game mechanics, there's possible mechanics and systems you might put in the game that might not work the way you had anticipated, or they might not be fun. So you have to be able to audible for those types of things. Like I
And
said, if
not
you
to
keep the creatives involved, then those things can be easily changed and mitigated.
and not to mention play testers. They had to get play testers in to test the game before they even introduced it to the public.
Yeah, the best games have the longest playtest cycles. They do internal playtests, external playtests, and they start to open it up to larger and larger betas. That's what happened with Baldur's Gate. There are people who played Baldur's Gate like a year before it came out, and they were like, "Oh, I don't know if this is going to be good." And then they kept doing more smaller playtests, and it got better and better and better. And they released it, and we all know Baldur's Gate 3 was a huge smash hit. It's like,
Mm.
did it win Game of the Year?
Did it? I'm not totally sure, but it was such a good game. I think it did.
Huge hit. Yeah, it was huge hit. Huge
It
hit.
should have been the game of the year. But
Oh yeah.
like with titles like the Dragon Age,
Mhm.
Belgard, right? Those type of games, I feel like had the love behind them when it was being created, because like you mentioned last time we was talking, that the created character section of the game was like outstanding to the point where it didn't have no flaws, man. You was able to do so much with your character. Talk to me a little bit
Yeah.
more about that.
Yeah, giving people agency in their games to create the character that they want to play as is huge. It goes a long way. That's one of the reasons, like I said, I love the first Mass Effect, which is also another BioWare game. BioWare is who makes Mass Effect series. They make the Dragon Age games. They did Jade Empire. They did a game that not many people love, but I love, Anthem. But yeah, when you're able to create a character that, if you want the character to look like you, or if you want the character to look like your friend or your mom, your dad, your brother, your favorite superhero, you can try to make a character look like that. That's going to make you come back to a game over and over and over again, because you're able to embody what you made to their character creator. So having good character creators shows that you had a team that was creative and they're thoughtful to the player base. You know what I mean? Especially one as wide ranging, as diverse as this. There's a lot of black hair options, skin tone options are great. They've got good voices. There's just so much covered, under that character creator. And it just makes everyone, that's one of the reasons why a game has been so successful, is people they feel like it's representing them. It's coming in, it's giving them something to play as. And it's also a fun, like you could just spend hours just creating different characters, trying to make different celebrities, if you wanted to. I should actually look for a video like that. It's usually when games like this with good creators come out, there's always somebody on the internet who tries to make someone look like Robert Downey Jr. or Sam Jackson, or here's Ewan McGregor. Like,
What
always try to
gets
make those.
What gets me when they give you that creative control, right? But I don't know if it's just me who feel this way, but I know I've seen this in many articles that as representative, the representation of a black person on the game, right? You always have that Killmonger hairstyle.
No, let's talk about that. Yeah. Well, here's my. What are your thoughts on it, though? What are your thoughts?
No, so it's true, man. Not every black person in the game should have that hairstyle. And it's just crazy.
I agree. I think it's definitely been overused. But this is what I'll say about about that hairstyle. It's been overused, but at the same time, I'm glad they're actually giving us a new overused one, because before it used to just be how my hair out actually used to look, where it's just low and kind of even all around, well, faded, but even on the top and low. I used to rock the waves. And that was what they used to give us, was just the low fade. Like my fade now, it's got height. And I do the whole sponge thing. But they used to just give us the low, even almost all around. And that was it. That was like the kind of standard black guy hair. But, even when they do their standard white character, your standard white character who's like grizzly with the dark beard, he always has the same haircut.
Yeah.
Like if you look at, Snake and Marcus Phoenix and I don't know, the guys they put on the cover of Call of Duty sometime, they all have the same white guy haircut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the only reason why it bothered me, but it didn't. Like some people on the internet were still like, get rid of this haircut. I'm like, but someone like that, because the way I look at it is the Killmonger haircut, or at least the one they show in gaming, it's just a longer version of what I have.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? If I grow my hair out for 2 months, I can flop it down to a side, or I can pick a side and it will flop down.
See, what got me was I was I was praying, man. When I found out that Black Ops 6 was gonna have a black guy on the cover of their game, I was like, I
Yeah.
hope he don't have that Killmonger hairstyle.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I was praying that it didn't have it, man. Well, I'm
Yeah. You
glad.
definitely don't want to be locked into one archetype.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that they give us the option to, because the haircut, it looks kind of good on some video game characters. Kind of gives them, if they have the right stature and everything, it can look kind of, kind of Killmonger.
Well, have you ever you seen Tekken 8?
Yeah, Eddie. Like Eddie looks real slick.
Yeah.
And he looks
It looks
real
good on
slick with
him.
the haircut. That's my point. It's like if you create the certain character to look right. Also, Miles Morales rocks it in Spider-Man 2. It looks real good on Miles.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that one up, because I seen of course when they in costume and the Spider-Man 2, but I did not see them outside of their mask to see his hairstyle. But I'm not surprised that he has that hairstyle.
Yeah. But they do it well for him. They do it well. It's a good look.
Okay.
Here's the thing, when things are done well, it looks good. But what happened is they gave us the Killmonger one so quickly in succession, especially when we were looking for the representation. You know what I mean? That it was like, wait, we want the representation, but we want to be represented like a little bit differently every time. We don't want to just, you know what I mean? But then I'm sure those gaming guys were like, but wait, we always do the same white guy when we do a white guy.
Why not do the same black guy?
Exactly. I mean, that's kind of how they think, unfortunately, because like if you go and look at, if you had a smattering of like the gristled white characters from video games, a lot of them are like the same archetype. So that's a gaming problem, is they always get locked into archetypes. And that happens in acting, is they start cast typing people. They think you should be this. It always goes back to diversity.
Yeah.
The more
Which is needed.
diverse you can make your thing from the beginning, and I know that some people don't like that word diversity. They think it's bad. No, it's a good word. It's a good thing, because it makes your story more rich. You want when you're writing and you're having people and ideas coming from different areas and sections of the whatever world you're created or whatever world you're trying to reflect, it adds depth, it adds reality, it adds new points of view. It actually makes it easier for you to write, because now you can start to go off into, oh, well, if this person thinks this and this person thinks the opposite, then they can conflict here. And they also, not only do they think different, they look differently. And because they come from different, it makes your circle of a narrative way more intricate,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So we talked about the past, the present, but what about the future? Where do we think gaming is heading? Personally, I'm excited about the potential for AI-driven games where NPCs can react in dynamic and unpredictable ways. Then there's the whole world of VR and AR. Imagine living inside of a game for real. But I also hope we don't get lost. We don't lose the sight of making games special, creativity, and that sense of pure fun. Byron, what's your dream for the next decade of gaming?
No, I mean, yeah, well, you kind of hit all the topics there. AI is kind of rolling up on us like a tide. And at the same time, with books like Ready Player One that turn into movies that talk about, societies that have been fully engrossed by AR, and Ready Player One, people, they go to work in the virtual reality world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You could go to school in the VR world in Ready Player One. And so everything has to come with balance. And in our society, we have to really make sure we take our time. Take our time, take our time. I'm excited for the future of gaming, and I think AI has a big role to play. I don't want AI to take over making assets, and I think AI can come into play in a very specific way that, like you said, will help with NPC interactions. I mean, there's already been gaming's already been one of the most industry that's been using AI and all the stages of what AI is, VI, and all that kind of thing. And I think as long as AI doesn't come in and start taking away the creative jobs, like, and that's what executives try to do, is they want AI to come in and, well, if I can have AI draw the picture, I don't have to pay someone to draw it.
Keep all the money for themselves.
Yeah, see that, nobody wants that. We don't want that. AI needs to be a tool to aid the creative. So you really should be hiring more people to work with maybe your AI department to help facilitate speed, not to replace people.
Yeah.
And as far as NPC interactions, man, that would be great if we can get to a place where AI is able to help with pre-recorded voice lines and augmenting and all that. That could be really cool in terms of how, especially for an open world experience where you have actors who've recorded a ton of dialogue, and then you got the AI that's working with what the actors have already done. Could be some fun special things, but it has to just make sure that it's all done with respect to the people doing it, the builders, the writers, the tech creators, the actors, the voiceovers, the musicians. It's all still has to lean on that creative side. And we have to value the humanity of it. We have to value that if we're going to ask people, if society is going to ask us to work and we want to work, we shouldn't have things coming to replace the work we want to do, right?
Exactly.
So
see, and my whole deal about this whole thing, right, is just that the fact where, what if AI can get so good to the point where it replaces the actors? You no longer need scripts made because the AI can do that itself. It can.
That's one of the fights that had out here in Hollywood. Is you don't want that to happen, because then you start to the question. It starts to become an existential crisis. Well, then what are we doing at all? You know what I mean? Why do we need to have AI doing scripts and creative things when AI could be just helping us with so many other problems, like fixing the atmosphere and helping us learning how to, pump CO2 out and pump oxygen in? And why can't AI help us heal everybody, come up with cures for diseases after looking at billions of models of people, So, like I said, as long as it's a tool people are using and not replacing, then it can be game. We have to keep it as a tool, not a replacer, because then it can be something beautiful for society. If it's always a tool that people are using and not being replaced by, but that's always like, it goes into the will of the executives and what we're going to do about it as workers. Are we going to just let it happen? Or are we going to fight it?
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, humans always going to be needed when it comes down to machinery anyway. So it's like,
I hope so.
Hey man, it got to be, because we don't want another Skynet, So I hope we don't go down that road, but hey, you never know. But it's just to the point, man. It's just like you said, you don't want to be feeling like you're being replaced, but you also don't want to have to rely mentally on always doing everything by yourself. You want that.
Like the AI tools, the things that will make it easier to facilitate the work you're already doing will be great. I wish I could kind of technically have the right jargon to say this, but as long as it's a part of, the toolkit, things people are using and they know that they're using and they're implementing it into their work, not being told by an executive that, hey, blah, 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 blah. then it can remain something that's a creative aid, and it's only going to enhance the games that we play, and that can go super far. I mean, AI potentially used the right way could really help you create more choose your own adventure stories. Games might be able to have more endings, because of potentially what could happen with writers and where they've scripted things to go. I think there's positives and negatives. It just it's got to be understood by us, the fans, what we're getting and possibly asking for. And they need to be transparent about what they're putting out there too, because we don't want to start getting hyped or giving them too much money for products that are too AI created, and they've started replacing all their workers. And then it's like, oh crap, we don't want to do that at all. So companies got to be transparent with us of how they're using it. And we've got to be honest consumers, which is tough for at least American.
And you definitely right about that. It got to have somewhat balance, man. It got to have that balance.
Yeah.
If it have it, it shouldn't be as hard for us to adapt or to cope with.
Yeah, we don't have to be so crazy scared of the unknown like we always are. Just we have to do it right and with a little bit of integrity.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So, man, this has been such a fun conversation, from reminiscing about the good old days, pixelated sprites, to dreaming about the future of immersion gaming. It's clear that this industry is always evolving, and so are we as gamers. Before we wrap it up, I just want to remind our listeners to share their favorite retro or modern gaming memories with us. Head over to our Discord or drop a comment on our YouTube channel. We love to hear from you. Thanks again, Byron, for joining me tonight, and thank you, our amazing listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Retro Pioneers podcast. Until next time, keep gaming and stay retro.
Peace.